Dirtiest job ever? Well, let's see, there were 300 altogether. They were all bad and good at the same time, but I guess the worst was probably
The last cameraman from Dirty Jobs broke his silence only 3 minutes ago, and already the story feels like something no one was ever meant to hear. He didn't give his real name, only Mark, the name the old crew used for him when strangers asked who he was. He said it's the name he uses now because what followed him after the show ended forced him to abandon the life he once had. Mark explained that Dirty Jobs was never just about difficult work or dangerous conditions. There were moments behind the camera that he believes Discovery buried intentionally, not to protect the audience, but to protect the people who filmed it. For nearly 10 years, he followed Mike Rowe into some of the most unforgiving environments in America. Rotting factories, methane-choked sewers, abandoned slaughterhouses, derelict chemical plants. If a job was filthy, forgotten, or feared, the crew filmed it. But the fear wasn't the job. Not really. The fear was what happened when the cameras kept rolling in places that had been silent for decades. Places that had soaked up the worst parts of human history and seemed to breathe when no one was looking. He said it started small enough that nobody questioned it. Batteries drained too quickly. Lights flickered only in specific rooms. Audio recordings picked up faint static that didn't match any equipment on set. At first, they blamed the environment. Old wiring, unknown chemicals, electromagnetic interference. The excuses felt believable, at least until the excuses stopped fitting the facts. Mark said the earliest sign that something was wrong came during a shoot inside an abandoned water tunnel system beneath an old mining town. Mike was joking with the crew while walking through ankle-deep water, but the audio captured something no one heard in person. Beneath the splash of water and Mike's voice, there was a whisper so faint that editors thought it was the wind, until they isolated it. The whisper repeated one word: leave. Discovery ordered the footage cut. They told the editors to erase the audio completely. Someone burned the original tape. Mark wasn't supposed to see that, but he did. He added that it only got worse. In a condemned textile mill in Ohio, one of the remote cameras caught a figure standing behind Mike during a walkthrough. The figure had no defined face, and its proportions didn't look human. Arms slightly too long, neck craned unnaturally to one side. When the editors slowed it down frame by frame, the figure jittered like it was being pulled by invisible strings. Discovery's head of post-production flew out the next morning, confiscated every drive, and reminded the crew of their non-disclosure agreements. Mark said he made copies anyway. He couldn't ignore the feeling that something was watching them, something that didn't want to be filmed. And then came the coal mine in West Virginia, the moment he believes cursed the entire Dirty Jobs crew. They were filming a segment on underground collapses, walking deep into a shaft no longer maintained but still open for demonstration. The miners said nothing at first, but Mark noticed how they avoided looking down one specific corridor that branched off the main tunnel. When he asked about it, an older miner muttered, "Old vein, we don't go there." But no one explained why. 4 hours into filming, Mark heard the whispers through his headset again. This time they weren't vague or faint. They spoke names, full names, including his own. He switched channels. The whispers grew clearer. The miners went still. Then the lights flickered and died one by one until the tunnel was swallowed in darkness. Only the faint hum of the ventilation system remained. A moment later, one of the light rigs exploded, scattering sparks down the shaft. The blast knocked Mark off balance. When he steadied the camera, he saw a faintly glowing silhouette standing at the far end of the old vein. He thought it was a miner, but it cast no shadow. It didn't flinch when debris fell around it. And when the lights sputtered back on, it vanished. Discovery seized the footage immediately. Mark said executives arrived before they even reached the surface. They made them sign revised NDAs, claiming the explosion could be used against the network if anyone interpreted it as negligence. Mark knew it had nothing to do with wiring. The raw footage told a different story, a story he kept a copy of. After that day, everything changed on set. They were no longer just filming tough jobs. They were walking into places that felt alive. places that reacted to cameras, places that wanted something from them. A septic tank explosion in Arizona nearly killed them. A sound operator swore he saw a shadow detach from another shadow. Equipment malfunctioned only during certain shots, only in rooms with no airflow and no power. Mark said the laughter and camaraderie that defined early seasons slowly disappeared. Fear replaced it. One night, after a shoot in a meat processing plant, a young cameraman quit on the spot. He said something moved behind the hanging carcasses after all the lights were turned off. He described a shape with no clear outline, just a distortion in the air, like heat rising off asphalt. He left without collecting his final paycheck. No one saw him again. Mark said that by season 7, Discovery wanted the show to continue no matter the risk. It was a hit. Money mattered more than what the crew was experiencing. Even Mike admitted there were episodes we don't talk about, though he always brushed off the danger in interviews. Mark insists Mike knew more than he let on. He tried to forget everything after the show ended, but forgetting never came. Weeks later, he began receiving phone calls from blocked numbers. At first, there was only static. Then the static repeated words he remembered hearing underground. One night, the voice in the static was his own, not current him, past him. It repeated things he'd said during the coal mine shoot. He unplugged the phone. The calls continued anyway. When he contacted former crew members, they refused to talk. One told him, "You're digging where you shouldn't dig," and hung up. That man died 2 months later, officially from an accident, though the police report mentioned erased voicemails and a landline emitting static despite being unplugged. A field producer named Rachel vanished entirely after texting Mark, "They're not done with us." Her body was never found. That was when Mark realized whatever they filmed wasn't just attached to places, it attached to people. He tried burning his old tapes. He smashed memory cards. He wiped hard drives. The calls continued. The static followed him into hotels, into diners, into rest stops. When he bought a new phone on a cash-only plan, it rang the same night. Static. His name. The faint sound of dragging metal. Eventually, he decided to tell Mike. After months of trying, Mike agreed to meet him in a small highway diner. Mark slid a flash drive across the table containing footage Discovery had erased. Mike didn't touch it. He just looked at it like it was poison. Then he said, "I know what's on it. If you're smart, you'll destroy it," and left without finishing his coffee. 2 days later, Mark's storage unit was broken into. Every drive labeled DJ Raw was gone. Nothing else was touched. Cameras still in place, cache still hidden. Only the footage disappeared. Police didn't care. He checked his email. Every cloud backup was gone. Every archived file corrupt. He fled, living between motels, using burner phones, always looking over his shoulder. But one night in a Nashville motel, the unplugged television turned itself on. It showed flickers of scenes he thought were gone. The meat plant, the mine, the tunnels. Then a shadow stretched across the screen, matching his exact height and shape, but moving independently of him, it dissolved into static. He left that night, driving until sunrise, until he was sure the motel was nothing but a blurred reflection in the rearview mirror. But he knew it didn't matter. What followed him didn't need a location. He said the worst footage he ever recorded came from an unlisted episode near an abandoned water treatment plant in Louisiana. They weren't supposed to be there. No crew knew who booked the shoot. The producers found no paperwork. Still, Discovery insisted they film at least something. The plant was coated in thick black sludge that smelled like chemicals and rot. A sign buried in mud read, "Restricted Access." He set his camera on a tripod. The ground vibrated underneath them. The sludge in one tank bubbled violently, like something rising from the depths. Then it stood. A humanoid shape covered in tar, with no face, no eyes, just a head turning slowly toward him. Mark couldn't move. It stared, or whatever the faceless equivalent of staring was, before sinking back into the sludge without a sound. That night, their hotel power shut off at exactly 3:03 a.m. Every digital clock in their vehicles had reset to 3:03 a.m. Even the cameras showed the same timestamp. Though the footage was filmed during the afternoon, Mark tried to destroy the tape, but every time he played it, a message appeared in the static. Don't erase. He buried the tape in the woods behind his house. Weeks later, it reappeared on his porch, covered in mud but intact. That was when he quit everything. He abandoned filming, abandoned his home, abandoned his life. He now lives off the grid with no phone, no internet, no identification. He says every night feels like being underground again. Dark, airless, watched. He said it isn't just in the footage anymore. It's in him. It's in every crew member who was there when the cameras captured things no one should see. Journalists who tried to verify his story had their devices crash when opening folders labeled DJ Unaired. A YouTuber who uploaded supposedly leaked clips had his entire channel erased. Overnight Reddit threads discussing the footage vanish within hours. Some blame discovery, others think the truth is darker. Mark's last message before disappearing said he buried the Louisiana tape deep in the Appalachian Mountains. If you find it, don't play it. Leave it. Let the dirt keep it quiet. No one has seen him since. And those who worked with Mike say he keeps one old show camera locked in his office, one that still smells faintly of sulfur and sewage. He refuses to turn it on. Fans now rewatch old episodes, listening closely. Between the laughs, between the machinery, some swear they hear faint whispers. Some swear shadows in the background move wrong, like they're not shadows at all. And some believe the last cameraman wasn't warning us about what he filmed. He was warning us about what never stopped filming back. The whispers, Mark said, weren't just sounds. They were messages. Sometimes they repeated his words, other times they called out for Mike, for crew members long gone, or for no one in particular. He believes that whatever they filmed became attached to those places, but also attached to them, the people who dared to observe it. It was as if the act of pointing a lens at it made it real, gave it shape, gave it attention. And once it had attention, it followed. Mark described a night when he returned to the abandoned textile mill, thinking he could burn the remaining footage and finally close the chapter. As he lifted the match, the air grew unnaturally cold. A mist crept along the floor, rising into a shape too human to be mist, too wrong to be human. It stopped at the edge of the doorway, observing him. He fled without burning anything, leaving the reels where they lay, knowing that trying to destroy them would not stop what had been awakened. Every electronic device in Mark's vicinity seemed to betray him. Phones, laptops, cameras, even radios acted as conduits. Static would pulse through them, carrying whispers he didn't understand but somehow recognized. They weren't random. The occurrences followed him like a pattern, precise and deliberate. No one could explain it. Not scientists, not engineers, not technicians. Mark knew he was dealing with something beyond technology and beyond reason. He started to notice that his dreams mirrored the places he had filmed. Underground tunnels stretched infinitely, faceless figures waded in pools of sludge, and machines that shouldn't work hummed with life. Each dream was accompanied by the same whispering voices, repeating the same words he heard when awake. Sometimes the words were familiar, sometimes they were completely alien. He would wake up drenched in sweat, convinced the night hadn't ended, that the footage was still playing somewhere he couldn't see. Mark's isolation became complete. He left his old home, sold his possessions, and severed connections. Bank accounts were closed, social media accounts deleted. He rented cheap motels under false names, never staying in one place for more than a few days. But he realized quickly that distance didn't matter. It followed. The static infiltrated radios in motels he had never booked before. Screens flickered images of sites he had never been near. He knew it was watching. Always watching. He recounted a story of driving through a remote stretch of the Appalachian foothills at night. The only sound was the hum of his engine. Then, the headlights reflected movement in the trees. Shadows twisted, as if running alongside his car. He swerved but found nothing when he stopped to investigate. The tracks in the mud were too human to belong to an animal, but too distorted to belong to any man. Mark said that was the night he realized the footage hadn't just documented the work, it had documented the presence. One of the hardest truths for Mark to accept was how his colleagues vanished or died under mysterious circumstances. Crew members who joked about haunted mines disappeared without trace. Others died in accidents that could have been normal, if not for the erased evidence and missing timestamps. The pattern was too consistent to ignore. It wasn't coincidence. It was consequence. Mark confessed that even simple objects became ominous. Tripods, light stands, cables, things once mundane, took on a threatening presence. They would appear where he hadn't left them. Shadows would stretch from them in ways that defied the direction of light. The equipment itself seemed animated, imbued with the same malevolent awareness as the spaces he filmed. He began to study the old footage obsessively, analyzing every frame and sound wave. He could see faint glimmers of movement in empty rooms, static distortions that seemed to outline forms. Audio tracks revealed whispers he could isolate and loop endlessly. Sometimes he could make out phrases. Watch, not safe. It sees you. The more he watched, the more he realized that the footage wasn't just a record, it was communication. Mark said that after the Louisiana sludge figure appeared on camera, he stopped interacting with anyone. He knew that any contact could bring the presence closer. Even speaking about it seemed to attract it. One night, he received a letter, handwritten, with no return address, containing a single sentence. "You shouldn't be telling them." He burned it immediately, but the fear it provoked lingered for weeks. His paranoia grew as he started noticing coincidences too strange to dismiss. Hotel rooms he stayed in had mirrors that reflected things that weren't there. Random streetlights would flicker exactly when he passed beneath them. He felt watched, even in daylight. Mark came to understand that the act of filming, even years ago, had bound him to these places. And now, distance offered no safety. He revealed that he tried to reach out to those who might help: paranormal investigators, scientists, journalists. But any who attempted to view the tapes or analyze the footage suffered device malfunctions or erased files. One journalist reported her laptop fried after opening a folder labeled DJ Unaired. Another researcher had all her cloud backups corrupted. Mark interpreted this as a warning. Some things are not meant to be observed. He recounted an instance when he set up cameras in a remote cabin to observe what might happen during the night. At exactly 3:03 a.m., lights would flicker, shadows would stretch unnaturally, and the faint sound of dragging metal would echo through the room. The cameras, all unplugged and on battery power, would simultaneously record the same events. Mark said it didn't matter if he was present or absent. The phenomena occurred regardless. Mark reflected on the psychological toll. Sleep deprivation, anxiety, constant vigilance. It left him fragile, hesitant to trust his own senses. He started questioning reality itself. Some nights he could hear Mike Rowe's voice laughing faintly, even though he was alone in the dark. He would see fleeting glimpses of figures behind doors that no longer existed. It was a living nightmare that refused to end. He became obsessed with one principle: never let the footage leave his control. Every backup, every copied reel, every digitized file was secured in ways designed to prevent theft or exposure. He believed the content was dangerous, not only because of what it depicted, but because of what it could attract. Mark felt responsible. He knew that once the recordings were seen by others, the phenomena could reach them as well. In desperation, he once attempted to destroy a hard drive in a remote forest by hammering it, setting it ablaze, and burying it in a creek. The next morning, it reappeared on the edge of the woods, clean and undamaged. Mark said he no longer doubted that whatever watched him had agency and power far beyond human understanding. Mark recounted a final face-to-face encounter that left him physically shaken. While attempting to revisit an old site of filming, a figure appeared in the shadows, indistinct yet unmistakably human in shape. It watched him silently, then vanished when he tried to approach. That was the night he decided he could no longer confront the places he had once filmed. It wasn't avoidance. It was survival. The Louisiana tape, which remains buried somewhere in the Appalachian Mountains, is the only piece of evidence Mark refuses to view. He describes it as a warning, a message from something beyond comprehension. He believes it holds the key to understanding the events that haunted him, but that attempting to access it would be catastrophic. Even now, Mark said, he experiences residual effects, flickering lights, static on unused radios, distant echoes that seem to mimic his voice. Small objects move when he isn't looking. The presence has become a constant companion, reminding him of what he captured, what he disturbed, and what follows him still. He admits that the show, once a celebration of hard work and perseverance, accidentally uncovered something ancient and dangerous. Dirty Jobs was never meant to explore the supernatural, yet it did, and Mark, by filming, became bound to it. He fears the day someone else finds the Louisiana tape and unleashes the same force upon others. Mark has refused all contact with former crew members for fear of drawing attention. He has changed his appearance, his routine, and his location countless times, yet he knows it follows, persistent and patient. It is a reminder that curiosity can be deadly and observation can be a trap. He recounts a vivid memory of a factory shoot where a shadow moved against all light sources, bending reality and never appearing to belong to any human or object. Discovery had ordered the deletion of the footage, claiming corrupted data, but Mark saw what was real. The crew was terrified but compelled to continue filming. Mark believes that these manifestations are tied to the act of observation itself. Filming gave them form, watching them gave them strength, and removing them from sight does not weaken them. He said this is why all attempts to destroy the footage have failed. They are tethered to reality through attention. He has spent years cataloging his experiences, writing them down as a form of protection, as though organizing them into words might shield him from what he has seen. He never plans to publish them. Even speaking about them aloud carries risk. Mark says that he sometimes sees traces of what they filmed in everyday life: a shadow moving in a peripheral window, static in a car radio when no signal exists, whispers carried on the wind that repeat old phrases he once captured. It's not imagination, he insists. It's evidence that the force he encountered is real, persistent, and mobile. The thing he fears most is that someone will stumble upon the footage unprepared, thinking it's just a lost segment of a show. The reality is that what's captured on tape cannot be uncaptured. Viewing it invites engagement. Curiosity becomes a door, and those who enter may not return unchanged. Mark has been forced to live in secrecy, off the grid, with minimal human contact, because he knows that any connection can provide a conduit. Even digital communication has proven dangerous. He warns anyone trying to verify his claims that technology itself may betray them. He confesses to moments of despair, wondering if the phenomena would ever relent, if he would ever find peace. Sleep rarely comes. When it does, the dreams replay events he filmed, distorted and amplified, until the line between waking and sleeping is non-existent. He insists that Mike Rowe, while aware, has chosen silence. Mark believes that Mike keeps a single old camera from the show in his office, never to be used, because the scent of the environments they captured is still embedded in it, and because some things, once observed, should never be observed again. Mark says he has no intention of returning to filmmaking. Even reviewing his old work is dangerous. The only control he has left is avoidance and secrecy. He hopes that his warnings will prevent others from making the same mistakes. He acknowledges that fragments of lost footage continue to surface online, through leaks and dark web postings. He warns against seeking them, claiming they are not benign entertainment, but active living evidence of the presence that follows those who observed it. He described how small, mundane events trigger reminders of the entities: a door creaking, a shadow stretching too long, a light flickering. They are subtle but unmistakable, proof that the phenomena has not been contained. Mark says that even discussing the events now carries risk. The presence can reach through sound, through words, through memory. Attention is its medium, and curiosity is its key. He concludes by emphasizing that Dirty Jobs was never just a show about hard work. Somewhere between labor and observation, the crew disturbed something primordial, something that has never left. He urges anyone who comes across old episodes, lost clips, or mentions of his story to tread carefully, to leave the footage alone, and to avoid pursuit. Some jobs, he warns, should never be cleaned. Some things should remain buried. In the end, Mark disappears into anonymity. He leaves behind a cautionary tale, a chilling reminder that the act of seeing can have consequences, and that some forces, once observed, will never release their hold. Even now, when fans watch old episodes, he claims that if they listen closely between the machinery hum, Mike Rowe's laughter, and the background noise of labor, they may still hear it. The faint whisper, steady and deliberate, saying, "We're still here." Mark's story closes not with resolution, but with silence, static, and a warning that reverberates beyond the screen. What they filmed continues to exist, somewhere between light and shadow, sound and silence, waiting for the next person to look too closely. No one has seen him since, and no one knows where he is. He vanished into the shadows he once filmed, leaving behind only fragments, whispers, and the lingering unease that Dirty Jobs was never just about work. It was a glimpse into something mankind was never meant to encounter.